Please, your son's not moving. He's bleeding." The voice trembled through the line, almost drowned by rain and passing cars. CEO Caleb Warren froze at the head of the polished table, phone pressed tight against his ear. Growth charts for Warren Enterprises flickered behind him on a wall of glass, but the room faded until there was only that small, urgent voice. "Who is this?" His chair screeched as he stood, knocking over a stack of papers. "I'm Zara Miles," she said, breath hitching. "He's on a 48th by the basketball court. He's not waking up. There's blood. So much blood." Caleb didn't wait for more. The phone slipped from his hand and hit the table with a dull thud. He grabbed his coat, moving fast, ignoring the startled voices calling his name. He dialed a single number on his phone. "Derek, get the chopper ready. Now! I'm sending coordinates." On the rooftop, the helicopter was already waiting in the storm, its blades cutting through the rain. Derek Cole, his head of security, gave a nod from the cockpit as Caleb rushed in and slammed the door shut. The city rolled beneath them, a blur of wet amber streets. Caleb clenched his fists, jaw locked. And then, over the roar of the engine, a quiet memory hit him, sharp as a razor. That morning, Noah standing at the door, his backpack slung low. "Bye, Dad." Just 2 words, spoken without looking up. Caleb had been too busy on a call to answer. Now those words echoed, an indictment of his neglect. Now his son might never say anything again. Blocks away, under a flickering lamp, Zara knelt on cracked asphalt. Her hoodie was soaked through, sleeves dark with Noah's blood. She pressed her hands against the gash on his head, whispering words too soft to catch. A shadow lingered near the chain-link fence, face hidden, watching. Then it melted into the alley. The helicopter skimmed low. Caleb jumped before the skid settled, running across puddles toward the small shape on the pavement. He shoved past a police officer who had just arrived and collapsed to his knees. A breath tore from his throat. "Noah!" His shout was lost in the rain and the wail of approaching sirens. Noah's face was pale, too pale. Blood seeped from his temple, matting his hair. One eye was swollen shut. His lips were parted, dry. Caleb reached out a trembling hand to touch his son's cheek. "Noah, hey buddy, stay with me. I'm here. Stay with me." He looked up, and only then did he see her. She was still kneeling there, her small hands covered in his son's blood, her wide, silent, and fierce eyes locked on his through the storm. The image froze in his mind, an unspoken question hanging in the cold, heavy air. Rain tore at the street as medics swarmed Noah, sliding him onto a stretcher. Blood streaked the boy's temple, dripping through the paramedics' gloves. Caleb moved with them, one palm steady on his son's chest, knuckles white. Zara stayed kneeling in the water, hoodie clinging to her arms, hands stained dark. A medic reached toward her with a card, compensation, a way to shoo her off. She shook her head, jaw locked. "Just don't leave him there." The words landed heavy, sharper than the storm. Derek Cole loomed close, coat soaked, scanning alleys through the curtain of rain. His stare settled on the girl, assessing every twitch. "How'd you get the CEO's number?" His voice rumbled low, a question that smelled of trouble. Zara's gaze darted toward the chain-link fence. A faint ember glowed, then vanished deeper into the alley. Her shoulders stiffened. "I just knew where to call." Breath quick, steady eyes. Caleb turned at the sound, water dripping from his hairline. The look in Zara's face, a mix of fear and iron, pulled him backward in time. Humid nights in Atlanta. Neighbors yanking kids out of fights before blue lights arrived. If one child falls, all of us pick them up. The lesson rang louder than the helicopter rotors. "Bring her!" Caleb snapped. Derek's brow tightened. "Sir, protocol." "She stays with us." Caleb's tone cut through the rain. Noah's alive because of her. The security chief gave the street another sweep. 2 elders stood on a porch, arms crossed, eyes sharp, the quiet authority of people who'd raised whole blocks. Their look wasn't curiosity, it was expectation. Protect that child. Derek jerked his chin toward the helicopter. Move. Zara rose slowly, legs unsteady. She kept close to the stretcher as they hustled through puddles, sneakers slapping the asphalt. The storm clawed at them, pelting skin, flattening clothes. She never looked up, gaze fixed on Noah's limp arm hanging off the gurney. Caleb climbed into the cabin, muscles tight, adrenaline still spiking. Derek pulled Zara inside, then swung the door shut, locking out the rain. Engines roared, blades slicing the night. Through the window, Caleb caught the edge of the alley again. Nothing but darkness and rain-slick brick. Whoever had watched from the shadows was gone, leaving only questions, and the sense that this girl had just stepped onto a field far more dangerous than she could imagine. Emergency doors slammed open, light spilling onto wet tile as medics raced Noah inside. "Clear Bay 3!" a nurse shouted. Caleb stayed on their heels, breath ragged. He caught a glimpse of Zara, small, soaked, folded tight on a plastic chair near the wall. Blood streaked her sleeves. Her eyes wouldn't leave Noah. "Pressure's good, pulse holding," a medic barked. "Keep him awake," Caleb urged. "We're trying." He turned toward the corner. Zara sat stiff, hoodie clinging to her arms. A janitor mopped rainwater from the floor, humming an old gospel under his breath. The melody slid through the hallway like a quiet blessing. Caleb crouched low, pulling a blanket from a supply cart. He draped it across her shoulders, set a cup of cocoa in her hands. Steam curled against the chill. "Drink," he said, voice clipped but steady. Zara blinked, fingers tightening on the cup. "I'm not... It's just cocoa." He kept his eyes on hers. "You earned a moment." Through the glass, Noah shifted. Monitors spiked, then settled. His eyes cracked open, dull but searching. "Zara," Caleb called gently, tipping his chin toward the room. She rose before thinking, blanket sliding off one shoulder. Her sneakers squeaked on the tile as she stepped closer to the partition. Noah's gaze fixed on her, a flicker of recognition under the haze. Caleb watched the silent exchange. The boy fighting to stay present, the girl standing straighter under the weight of his stare. "Stay right there," he murmured to her. "He needs to see you." Zara's lips pressed together, jaw set. For the first time since the call, fear loosened its grip on her eyes. She stood firm, clutching the warm cup, rain still dripping from her hair, a child holding the line while machines hummed and the storm raged beyond the hospital walls. Rain still hammered the windshield as Caleb eased the SUV into a narrow courtyard lit by one tired lamp. The brick building rose in shadows, windows patched with foil and old curtains. Zara sat silent in the back, hoodie drawn tight, eyes fixed on the floor mat. Derek scanned the lot, hand resting near his jacket. "Keep the engine hot," Caleb ordered, stepping out into the downpour. They followed Zara up a staircase that smelled of damp plaster and fried food. A door opened before they could knock. Althea stood there, gray hair tucked beneath a scarf, a cough racking her chest. Her eyes moved fast from Caleb to Zara, then to Derek. "Child, what trouble found you now?" Her voice carried the rasp of age and the weight of Sunday choirs. Zara hesitated in the threshold, clutching the blanket Caleb had given her. "He got hurt, Grandma. I couldn't leave him." Althea's gaze softened, though her hand trembled against the doorframe. "Come inside before that rain steals your bones." The apartment was small, warm from a space heater humming near an old sofa. Faded photos lined the walls, block parties, baptisms, a younger Camille laughing with friends on a church lawn. On a sagging bookshelf sat worn paperbacks and hymnals. One spine caught Caleb's eye. The fire next time. His breath stilled. Years peeled back. Camille at a volunteer drive, sleeves rolled up, face alight as she spoke about Baldwin and second chances. Caleb remembered pressing that very book into her hands, promising to help with her literacy program. He'd never followed through. Althea caught his glance. "Camille held on to that one," she murmured, voice rough. Said it reminded her someone once believed she could build something better. Guilt sliced through him, quick and sharp. He forced himself back to the room. Derek was checking corners, the weight of danger still hanging. "Miss Althea," Caleb began, steady but urgent. "Zara may be in danger. Whoever went after my boy might not be done." Althea straightened, thin but unflinching. "Then you keep her close, Mr. Warren. We protect ours. Always have." Outside, a bottle clinked in the alley, then rolled across concrete. Derek's hand shifted to his sidearm, eyes narrowing toward the window. Caleb placed a reassuring palm on Zara's shoulder. "You'll stay safe tonight," he said quietly. Zara nodded, staring at the old book on the shelf. For a moment the storm outside seemed to fade, leaving only the weight of promises once made and a new one forming. No more leaving this child, or her mother's memory, to fend for themselves. Caleb leaned over the desk in his study, jacket still damp from the storm. Derek stood nearby, phone to his ear, feeding quiet instructions to someone on the street. Caleb's fingers raced across the keyboard. A search window bloomed with Troy Briggs's record: petty assaults, loan sharking, street taxes near the basketball courts. One line froze him. An old incident report, dated 11 years back. Location: same block as Camille Miles's apartment. Witness notes blurred with time, but one name was clear. Troy Briggs, present at scene. His pulse kicked hard. Camille's face rose from memory. Warm smile, sleeves rolled up at a community drive, eyes alive with stubborn hope. He remembered the book, the way she promised to use it as a lesson for the kids she mentored. And then the call, months later. A break-in gone wrong, no arrests, just a life erased. He'd buried himself in work instead of demanding answers. Derek lowered his phone. "Background confirms Troy's still active. Runs a crew out of Tremont. And boss? Rumor says he's been feeding tips to a gossip blogger, trying to stir heat on Warren Enterprises." Caleb straightened slowly, guilt and anger twisting tight. "He put Noah in that street." "Looks that way." Caleb's jaw clenched. Images collided. Noah lying pale under the ER lights. Zara hunched on a plastic chair. Camille holding Baldwin's book, talking about building better futures. He'd failed Camille once. He wouldn't fail her daughter. He reached for the file printer, spat out. "Get me everything on Briggs. Associates, bank trails, all of it." Derek hesitated. "You sure about diving in yourself? Legal's going to scream." "I'm not asking." Caleb's voice cut through the room, low and steady. "He hurt my son. He stole a woman's chance to raise her child. I'm done watching from the sidelines." He pulled a legal pad closer, scrawling names. At the bottom he wrote one more line, underlined twice. Guardianship. Zara Miles. Derek watched him sign it, expression unreadable. Outside, a saxophone wailed from a corner bar, threading through the night like a warning and a promise. Caleb set down the pen, eyes fixed on the rain-dark street. This time, he'd stand between that child and every shadow that thought she was alone. A single gavel strike snapped through the cramped hearing room. Rain smeared the tall windows, turning the city outside into streaks of gray. Caleb sat at the defense table, shoulders squared, jacket immaculate despite the storm. Beside him, Zara sat small but upright, blanket still draped over her lap. Across the aisle, the CPS attorney adjusted her files, eyes sharp. "Mr. Warren," she began, voice clipped. "You arrived at the scene with security and a helicopter. You're the head of a billion-dollar corporation. How is this not an attempt to control a witness?" Caleb leaned forward. "I found a child holding pressure on my son's wound. She saved his life. That's the only reason she's here." The attorney turned to Zara. "Did he promise you anything? Money? Gifts?" Zara's fingers tightened on the blanket. She looked at Caleb, then at the judge, a black woman with silver braids tucked neatly behind her robe collar. "No," Zara said, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I just didn't want him left on the street." The attorney pressed. "You're saying you called a CEO at random?" Zara's eyes flashed. "If nobody stays, kids like me don't make it." The sentence landed heavy, echoing against the paneled walls. A murmur rippled through the back row where community elders sat, church ushers, barbershop regulars, neighbors who'd come to watch. The judge tapped a pen against her pad, gaze steady on the girl. "She speaks truth," the judge said quietly. "And truth carries weight in this court." Derek shifted behind Caleb, scanning the hallway through a glass panel. Out there, a man leaned against the banister, hood up, posture casual, eyes cold. Troy Briggs. He caught Derek's stare and smirked, a thin curl of contempt before turning away. Inside, the judge straightened. "This matter is urgent. The child's safety is at risk. Temporary guardianship is granted to Mr. Warren for 90 days. During that time, CPS will review placement and conduct a full investigation." The gavel fell again. Caleb exhaled, tension loosening only slightly. Zara kept her gaze on the judge, then slid a glance toward the window where rain streaked over the parking lot. She didn't see Troy, but she felt something shift. A line drawn, a fight waiting. Caleb rose, hand light on her shoulder. "You're coming with me now," he said quietly. Zara nodded once. Outside the chamber, Troy's shadow lingered just beyond the doorway, grin curling as the storm drummed against the courthouse glass. The game had only started, and everyone in that room could sense it. Sunlight pushed through tall windows, breaking against polished floors and the quiet hush of a home too big for its guests. Zara sat at the edge of a leather sofa, hoodie replaced by a soft sweatshirt borrowed from the laundry room. Across the coffee table, Noah flicked cards into a neat fan. Uno, a stack already growing beside him. "Skip," he announced, grinning despite the faint bruise at his temple. Zara eyed the card, lips twitching. She drew one, then another. "You cheat," she muttered, but the corner of her mouth bent upward. From the kitchen drifted the scent of collard greens and cornbread warming in the oven. Althea moved carefully between counters, humming an old Mahalia Jackson tune while stirring a pot. She'd insisted on cooking, claiming a girl couldn't heal on dry toast alone. Derek lingered near the hallway, pretending to scroll his phone, eyes always tracking the windows. On the coffee table lay a small, spiral notebook. Zara slid it closer, flipped to a clean page, and wrote a title in tight letters. "List of Fears." Her handwriting trembled at first, then steadied. That man in the alley. Noah not waking up again. Grandma getting sick for real. She hesitated, then added, 4. Being sent back. Caleb entered quietly, jacket off, sleeves rolled. He paused, taking in the sight. His son laughing over a card game, the girl writing with a pencil stub, Althea's voice weaving through the room. Something eased in his chest, but only for a breath. Voiceover slid in, low and measured, carrying the weight of memory. Peace is a loan you must pay back. Caleb sat on the arm of a chair, watching them. "New house rule," he said, a trace of a smile. "Winner of Uno clears the table." Zara looked up, cautious, then nodded. "Deal." Noah groaned. "That's not fair. I always win." "That's the point," Caleb replied, ruffling his hair. The boy laughed, tension loosening in the room. But Derek's gaze cut to the front gate, where a delivery van idled too long before pulling away. Caleb followed the glance, eyes narrowing. The house felt steady now. Warm food, familiar voices. But the storm outside hadn't passed. Somewhere, someone was waiting to collect on that loan of peace. Zara bent over her notebook again, pencil moving fast. She didn't see Caleb watching her, reading the names of her fears upside down, realizing how fragile this new calm truly was, and how far he'd go to defend it. Zara yanked open her locker, expecting the smell of pencils and cheap metal. Instead, a single photo slid out and fluttered to the floor. She froze. It was Camille, her mother, caught mid-laugh at a church picnic years ago, sunlight on her braids. Across the bottom, written in red marker, "Not the saint you think." Her throat tightened. Students bustled around, lockers slamming, sneakers squeaking on tile. She bent to pick up the picture, fingers trembling. A sticky note clung to the back. "Some debts don't die." Zara shoved the photo deep into her pocket and slammed the locker shut. Eyes darted down the hall. At the far end, a man in a maintenance jacket leaned on a broom, face hidden beneath a cap. He tilted his head just enough to let her know he'd been watching. That afternoon, Caleb found her at the kitchen table, notebook open, but blank. She pushed the cocoa mug away, shoulders rigid. What happened? She pulled the photo from her pocket, laid it down like evidence. Caleb studied the handwriting, the taunt. Derek leaned in, jaw set. "That's Camille," Caleb murmured, thumb brushing the edge. "Who put this in your locker?" Zara shook her head. "Didn't see." Her voice was low, flat. Derek's eyes hardened. "Briggs." Caleb looked up. "He's pushing her buttons." "Not just hers," Derek replied. "He's rewriting the story. Make the mother dirty, the kid disposable. Classic street leverage." Caleb stared at the photo, memories pressing hard. Camille laughing at a literacy drive, reading Baldwin aloud to kids on milk crates. He felt the old guilt flare, then solidify into something colder. "Lock the school down," he told Derek. "Pull the security feed. I want Briggs caught on film, or I want proof he's got someone inside." Derek nodded, already thumbing messages into his phone. Althea entered, wiping flour from her hands. She saw the photo, eyes narrowing. "That man's trying to shame the dead," she said, voice rough but sure. "Don't let him." Caleb met her gaze. "I won't." Through the window, the sun dipped behind rooftops, casting the street in bronze light. For a moment the house felt safe, cards still on the table, the smell of cornbread lingering. But Caleb's hand stayed on the photograph, grip tightening. Troy wasn't coming with fists alone. He was twisting memory, poisoning history, trying to make a little girl doubt the best thing she had left. And that meant the fight had just turned sharper. Late afternoon light slipped through the front windows, laying soft stripes across the living room rug. Althea's cough echoed from the kitchen, followed by the faint clink of mugs. On the sofa, Zara hugged a cushion, the photograph of her mother hidden deep in her pocket. Caleb stood near the mantel, scanning messages from Derek about Troy's next move. A knock broke the hush. Althea opened the door to a tall man in a dark wool coat, rain still clinging to his shoulders. Pastor Lyle stepped inside, voice rolling warm and deep. "House smells like Sunday," he said, eyes sweeping the room. "Collards on the stove?" Althea smiled through a wheeze. "Couldn't let this girl starve." Lyle crossed to Zara, lowering himself so their eyes met. "You must be Camille's baby," he said, gentle but sure. "Last time I saw you, you were no higher than my Bible." Zara straightened a little. "You knew my mom?" Everybody knew Camille. He took a seat, hands folded over a worn leather Bible. She believed kids like you deserved more than scraps from somebody else's table. Caleb shifted, uneasy but listening. Lyle glanced at him, then back to Zara. When storms come, a tree doesn't stand because the wind is light. It stands because the roots run deep. That's us. Folks who came before, folks sitting right here. He gestured to Althea, to Caleb, even toward Derek in the hall. They're your roots. Don't let anyone tell you different. Zara traced a finger along the blanket in her lap. What if the storm's too big? Then we lean harder, Lyle answered. That's how we've made it through everything. From red lines on maps to cuffs on wrists. We hold each other up. Caleb felt the words settle. He looked at Zara, small, eyes fierce despite fear, and saw Camille again, quoting Baldwin, fighting for a future nobody handed her. Guilt and resolve tangled in his chest. Derek appeared from the hallway, phone in hand. Update, he said, tone sharp. Briggs's crew's been spotted near the school. Lyle didn't flinch. Wolves always circle when they smell weakness, he murmured. Best answer is strength and clarity. Caleb nodded slowly. Then we stay planted. Zara glanced between them, a new steadiness in her posture. She reached into her pocket, touched the photo of her mother, and for the first time that day, her fingers didn't shake. Outside, the sky darkened, but inside the room something held, an old promise, a living root running deep beneath every threat waiting beyond the glass. A fresh storm broke online before the rain outside had even dried. On her cracked phone screen, Kendra Moss leaned back in a velvet chair, nails the color of spilled wine tapping against the case. Kendra was a blogger with a mean streak and a hunger for clicks. Her site fed off whispers from courthouse halls and backroom deals. That afternoon, she hit publish on a headline meant to sting. CEO buys off street kid to cover stock scandal. The post dripped with insinuation. It hinted that Caleb Warren had plucked a girl from the curb to whitewash insider losses, that Zara was bait in a PR spin. Screenshots of Caleb carrying Noah through the storm were pasted beside the words, framed like evidence of some secret transaction. By dusk, #StreetKidGate clawed its way across feeds. Comment threads flared, half outrage, half gossip. Memes painted Zara as a grifter, Caleb as a puppet master. Even local talk radio picked it up, callers tossing around phrases like street hustle meets corporate guilt. The next morning, Zara walked into school and felt the air tighten. Phones angled her way, whispers cut through locker clangs. Two girls by the water fountain snickered, one stage whispering, "Hey, millionaire's pet." A boy near the stairwell added, "How much they paying you to play hero?" Zara pulled her hoodie low, fingers clenching around the notebook inside her bag. A line from last night's talk with Pastor Lyle surfaced, roots hold when winds rise. But she still felt the sting, the way laughter could slice deeper than a blade. Back at the Warren house, Caleb scrolled through the blog on a tablet, jaw tightening. Derek hovered beside him, scanning names in the comment sections. "She's poisoning the well," Derek muttered. "Making the kid look dirty before Briggs even moves." Althea set down a plate of cornbread, eyes sharp. "They always come for the child first," she said, voice rough with memory. "That's how you break a whole story before it grows." Caleb shut the tablet, decision forming fast. "We don't hide," he said. "Not from truth, not from bullies with a keyboard." Down the hall, Zara sat on the edge of her bed, notebook open. She wrote a new line beneath her list of fears. Lies that stick. She paused, then tore the page out and crushed it. Her reflection in the window showed a girl still shaking, but also one learning that storms weren't always rain. They could be rumors, and sometimes the only shelter was standing firm while they raged. The living room lights were turned low, the storm outside rolling against the windows like distant drums. Caleb adjusted the phone on its tripod, framing the sofa where Zara sat between Noah and Althea. A small lamp cast a warm pool over them, softening the tension that had settled since the hashtag hit. Althea brushed a hand over Zara's hair, smoothing stray curls. "You ready, baby?" Zara nodded, clutching the folded photo of Camille. Her thumb traced the edge, a tiny anchor. Caleb checked the screen. "All right," he said quietly. "We're live in 3, 2. The red light blinked. Caleb faced the camera first, voice firm but calm. "I'm Caleb Warren. Yesterday, someone spread lies about a child who saved my son's life. Tonight, we're telling the truth." He stepped aside. "Zara, this is your space." Zara looked into the lens. Her voice trembled at first. "My mom's name was Camille Miles. She used to run reading circles at the church. She worked 2 jobs, but still brought books to kids on our block. She told me stories so I'd never forget where I come from." She held up the picture. "That's her. She wasn't a scam, and I'm not either. I just couldn't leave Noah out there." Noah leaned closer, his forehead still bandaged. "She kept me awake," he said, words quiet but sure. "I wouldn't be here if she hadn't." Althea cleared her throat, voice carrying decades of choir hymns and kitchen table truths. "Camille stood for every child who needed a hand. This little one," she rested a hand on Zara's knee, "is carrying that light." Caleb stepped back into frame. "People are twisting a story that belongs to her, to this family, to a woman who believed in better futures. We won't let them." He glanced at Zara, then straight into the camera. "We stand by the truth. We stand by community." He ended the stream and set the phone down. Notifications began to buzz almost instantly. Shares, hearts, comments. Protect Zara. Camille raised a soldier. Truth over gossip. Derek entered from the hall, tablet in hand. "Engagement's climbing fast," he reported, "but I can still shut the blogger down, buy her silence." Caleb shook his head, voice like steel. "No payouts. That's their game." He gestured toward Zara and Noah, toward Althea still holding the photo. "We fight this the way they taught us. Truth first, community behind it." Althea gave a small, satisfied nod. "That's the language folks understand." On the couch, Zara exhaled, shoulders loosening. She wasn't just surviving the storm now, she was speaking through it, backed by faces that wouldn't let her story be rewritten. Outside, the rain slowed, leaving the house wrapped in a quiet that felt less like retreat and more like the start of holding ground. Rain hissed against the tall windows, a steady percussion over the city. Inside Caleb's study, tension thickened the air. Derek stood at the far wall, phone in hand, eyes flicking between the gate cameras and the storm. Nia Harper stepped through the doorway, water dripping from the brim of her fedora. She was all lean focus and quick wit, a reporter raised on Southside grit, known for cracking stories people tried to bury. A folder and tablet were clutched tight under one arm. She dropped both onto the table. "Briggs isn't guessing," her tone sharp as glass. "He's running a board." On the tablet, 2 emails, time-stamped hours apart. 1. An order for a payout, wired to a man with a record for assaults. The other, a memo to Kendra Moss with bullet points about street kids and stock rumors. Derek leaned in, jaw set. So he bankrolls a hit on Noah, feeds slime to a blogger, and whispers to regulators. 3 lanes at once. Caleb scanned the screen, muscles tight. The glow lit the Baldwin book on the shelf behind him, Camille's memory standing silent witness. "Briggs wants chaos," Nia continued, tapping to enlarge a 3rd file, an unsigned complaint drafted for a state office, accusing Caleb of using a child to launder bad press. "He's not just swinging fists, he's scripting the headlines and baiting the law." Althea appeared from the kitchen, dish towel draped over her arm. Her gaze cut to Zara, curled asleep on the sofa, blanket slipping. She turned back, voice low but firm. He's trying to stain her mama's name. That's old playbook. Break the woman's legacy. Break the child next. Caleb straightened, eyes still on the emails. No more shadows. He pushed the tablet toward Derek. Lock school access. Get legal moving. Every cent Briggs spent, I want paper. Derek's nod was quick, precise. Nia closed the folder, gaze unwavering. If we leak this, he'll know I dug in. We leak, Caleb replied, tone flat as stone. We don't buy silence. We put truth on the block and let the neighborhood see who's selling lies. Outside, a car slowed near the gate, headlights slicing through rain before gliding on. Caleb watched its retreat, jaw hardening. Briggs had made his move with muscle, rumor, and law. The counterstrike would be cleaner, faster, and leave nowhere left for him to stand. The courthouse buzzed like a hive, rainwater dripping from umbrellas onto the marble floor. Caleb pushed through security with Derek close behind, Zara and Althea following. Cameras flashed. Reporters barked questions about stock rumors and street kids. Inside, the hearing room pulsed with low tension. Troy Briggs lounged at the plaintiff's table in a tailored jacket, too sharp for his history, smirk carved deep. Beside him, a lean attorney stacked files, lips curled in a predator's smile. The judge entered, a tall black woman whose silver braids framed eyes that missed nothing. We're here on an emergency petition concerning Zara Miles. Her voice rang, firm. Let's keep this concise. Troy's lawyer rose first, words sliding smooth. Your Honor, evidence suggests Mr. Warren orchestrated an elaborate scheme, plucking a child from the streets to shield himself from financial inquiry. Our client contends this was staged for sympathy and leverage. Gasps rippled through the benches. Zara shrank against Althea's side, fingers digging into the older woman's sleeve. Caleb leaned forward, voice steady but edged. That girl kept my son alive while grown men ran. There's no scheme in courage. The lawyer spread glossy photos. Caleb carrying Noah, Zara in the ER blanket, a grainy locker shot of Camille defaced. Images can be arranged, he pressed. The judge's gaze swept to the defense table. Do you have rebuttal? Pastor Lyle rose from the second row, Bible tucked under his arm. He walked forward, rein still clinging to his coat hem. I do. Permission granted, he faced the court, voice rolling like organ chords. Camille Miles pulled Troy Briggs out of a gang corner when he was 16. Got him into a jobs program, vouched for him with shop owners. She saw a man worth saving. He thanked her by stealing her car 2 months later and leaving her stranded after choir practice. That betrayal burned through our block for years. Troy's smirk flickered. Lyle turned to the bench. This child is Camille's blood. She didn't stage a thing. She stood where her mama would have stood, between danger and someone weaker. The judge's expression hardened. Noted. Troy's attorney tried to recover, but the room had shifted. Even the court officer near the door gave a quiet nod, as if an old truth had just been spoken aloud. The judge reviewed notes, then looked at Zara. You've been through a storm, young lady, but storms don't define routes. Her gavel struck once. Guardianship remains with Mr. Warren for 90 days. The court orders an investigation into Troy Briggs's conduct and connections. We'll see where evidence leads. Troy rose, jaw tight, mask cracking for a breath. He met Caleb's eyes with a promise of trouble, then strode out, coat collar up. Zara released a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Althea drew her close. Caleb reached across, steady hand brushing Zara's shoulder, a silent pledge to hold the line. Outside the chamber, thunder rolled low. The fight wasn't done, but for the first time, the scales leaned toward them, if only by an inch. Dusk pressed low over the city, turning the bus depot into a maze of steel beams and sodium light. Zara stepped off the curb, backpack slung over one shoulder, clutching the notebook where she'd written down every fear she wanted to outrun. She scanned the lot, empty except for a few travelers huddled under the awning and a bus engine coughing in the distance. A figure peeled from the shadows near the vending machines, too clean for a driver, too loose for a commuter. He moved with purpose, hands buried in his jacket. Another man waited near the exit, hood pulled, eyes locked on her. Zara's stomach dropped. She pivoted toward the row of benches, heart punching her ribs. "Zara!" Noah's voice shot across the lot. He jogged toward her, basketball clutched like a weapon. Derek strode behind him, eyes sweeping corners, hand brushing his coat where the weight of a holster lived. The first man closed the distance fast. "You coming with us?" His voice flat, a whisper carved from threat. Zara backed up, shoes scraping concrete. "Leave me alone." He reached for her arm, too late. Derek cut between them, shoulder driving the man back. "Step off," his voice low, carrying the steel of someone who'd stood post on too many dark nights. The hooded partner lunged from the side. Noah moved on instinct, ball swinging wide, cracking against the man's forearm with a sound that echoed off the depot roof. The attacker stumbled, curse spilling out. Zara froze, watching her brother steady the ball for another strike, eyes hard beneath the bruise still fading from his temple. Derek snapped cuffs from his belt, twisting the first man against the pillar. "Who sent you?" No answer, just a grunt, a glance toward the street where a black sedan idled, engine humming. Headlights flashed once, then the car peeled away, tires screeching. Noah lowered the ball slowly, breath ragged. "You good?" Zara nodded, pulse wild but gaze steady. The notebook inside her bag felt lighter, as if one fear had been crossed off without ink. Derek hauled the cuffed man upright, pressing him toward the SUV. "Let's get out before more rats crawl out." Zara slid in beside Noah on the back seat. Through the window, she watched the bus depot shrink behind them. Bent lights, wet pavement, the ghost of hands that hadn't dragged her anywhere tonight. For the first time since that phone call, she wasn't just surviving the storm. She was standing inside it, unbroken, watching the hunt turn against the hunter. Folding chairs filled the gym of the Westbrook Community Center, the air buzzing with voices and the faint smell of fried catfish from the kitchen. Banners for the scholarship drive hung from the rafters, hand-painted by neighborhood kids. Caleb stood near the stage with Zara and Noah, scanning faces, teachers, deacons, young men in church suits, aunties fanning themselves with printed programs. Troy Briggs slipped in through a side door, jacket pressed, smile thin. A leather folder dangled from his hand. He moved like he owned the room. Nia Harper watched him from the press table, recorder tucked beneath her blazer. Her eyes tracked the way Troy brushed shoulders with Kendra Moss near the punch bowl, their heads bending together in a too-quick whisper. Pastor Lyle stepped to the podium, mic squealing once before settling. "Tonight we gather," his voice rich as organ chords, "to honor those who lift the next child higher." Applause rippled. Zara's fingers tightened around Caleb's sleeve. Troy chose that moment to stride forward. "Judge," he called to the moderator, "before y'all pass baskets, the public deserves facts." He snapped open the folder, flashing papers thick with stamps. "Here, bank trails, payout logs. Warren's been buying this girl's loyalty to scrub his own mess." Gasps, a few murmurs. Nia rose, calm but coiled. "Interesting," she said, drawing a small device from her pocket. She tapped it, and Troy's own voice spilled through the speakers, recorded in a smoky diner booth. "Push the stock story. Plant that photo in her locker. Keep pressure on the girl." Then Kendra's voice chimed in, sly. "And if she breaks? We bury Warren with her." The room snapped awake, chairs scraping, voices rising. Someone shouted from the back, "Stay with her!" Others echoed, a chant swelling until it shook the walls. Troy's smirk cracked. He lunged toward Nia, but Derek was already there, intercepting with a broad shoulder. "Sit down," Derek growled, eyes never leaving Troy's. Kendra paled, backing toward the exit, but Althea blocked her path, chin high, the steel of every Sunday matriarch in her stance. "You'll answer for what you tried to lay on that child," she said, voice steady as pew wood. The judge overseeing the fundraiser banged the podium for order. "We'll be reviewing this recording with law enforcement." She gestured to officers by the door. They moved fast, securing Troy and Kendra before they could bolt. Zara stood frozen at Caleb's side, eyes wide but steady as the chant rolled over her. Neighbors, teachers, elders rallying behind a child who had once felt invisible. Caleb laid a hand on her shoulder, meeting her gaze. "They see you now," he murmured. The crowd's chorus swelled, a tide of voices rising against the lies. For the first time, the balance of power shifted fully, lit by the strength of a community that refused to let one girl face the storm alone. Morning light spilled across the courthouse steps, bright against the wet stone. Inside, the final hearing crackled with quiet tension. Caleb sat at the defense table, shoulders set, Zara beside him in a pressed navy dress Althea had ironed before dawn. Noah hovered close, hand resting protectively near Zara's elbow. Across the aisle, Troy Briggs shifted in his chair, wrists chained, eyes scanning the room with a predator's calculation. Kendra Moss sat further back, pale under the glare of cameras. Reporters lined the walls. Neighbors from Westbrook packed the benches, church ushers in Sunday suits, teens from the rec center, Althea's friends from choir. The judge, a black woman with steady eyes and a voice like polished oak, raised the docket. State versus Troy Briggs. Charges: assault, conspiracy, child endangerment, obstruction. She gestured to the prosecution. Proceed. Evidence rolled out fast. Bank wires, the recording Nia had exposed, grainy footage from the bus depot showing Briggs's men moving on Zara. Each piece landed like a hammer. Troy leaned back, mask cracking, inch by inch. Then the clerk called Zara to the stand. She walked forward, chin high though her fingers clenched the railing. The oath was read. She nodded once. Questions came, clear, sharp. She answered with steady voice, recounting the night in the street, the photo in her locker, the hands that tried to drag her away. When the defense lawyer tried to twist her words, she didn't flinch. "I know what I saw," she told him, gaze steady, "and I know who sent them." A murmur swept the benches. Pastor Lyle nodded from the second row, eyes bright. When testimony closed, the judge leaned forward. "This court finds Troy Briggs guilty on all counts. Sentence will be imposed after further review, but custody is immediate." Two deputies stepped in. Troy's smirk disappeared as cuffs clicked tighter. The judge shifted her attention to Caleb. "Mr. Warren, the petition for long-term guardianship is granted. Zara Miles will remain under your care with oversight for placement and schooling. The record will reflect this household as her legal home." Caleb exhaled, tension breaking in a slow wave. Beside him, Noah grinned, a small triumphant flash. Zara's lips parted, not quite a smile but something close. Althea's hands flew to her face, tears sliding over the lines time had etched. She reached for Zara as the girl stepped down from the stand, pulling her into an embrace. "Baby," she whispered, voice raw. "You finally got a home." Applause rippled, low at first, then building. Elders stood, murmuring prayers. A few teens clapped until bailiffs gently waved for quiet. Caleb placed a steady hand on Zara's shoulder. "You're safe now," he said, words quiet, but carved with promise. Nia Harper slipped through the crowd, recorder tucked away, offering Zara a nod of respect, the look of someone who'd watched a child stand taller than every lie thrown at her. The gavel struck once more, sealing the verdict. Outside, sunlight broke through thinning clouds, washing the courthouse steps in gold. Zara stepped out between Caleb and Althea, the roar of the city fading under the warmth of a new beginning. For the first time since that night on the street, the path ahead felt open, and she belonged on it. Spring sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the renovated rec hall, laying warm stripes across polished wood floors. Folding chairs filled the space where, weeks before, paint and dust had ruled. A banner stretched across the stage. Roots and Wings Initiative. Building futures, holding ground. Caleb stood off to the side, jacket draped over one arm, scanning the crowd. Kids from Westbrook's blocks filled the front rows. Braids, fades, hoodies, Sunday shoes. Behind them sat elders from the church, deacons in crisp suits, women with bright hats, the ones who had baked pies for every fundraiser and pulled teenagers off corners before blue lights arrived. Pastor Lyle adjusted the mic, voice rolling out steady. "We plant roots so our young can grow wings. Today, this hall becomes a place where neither storm nor lie can pull them loose." Applause spread, warm and thick as choir chords. Althea stepped forward, eyes shining behind wire frames. "Camille dreamed of this," she said, holding the Baldwin book high. "She told me kids deserved a room where stories begin, not where they end." Caleb looked toward Zara, sitting on the edge of the stage, notebook balanced on her knees. She rose, smoothing her skirt, and walked to the microphone. A hush settled. Even the littlest children leaned closer. Her voice was clear, low at first. "Broken isn't the end," she read from the page. "Broken is the seed cracking open, making space for light. We don't hide cracks. We plant them, water them, let them reach." She paused, scanning faces. Noah, Althea, Pastor Lyle, Nia, with her recorder still tucked in a pocket. "Every voice here matters," she continued. "Every hand keeps somebody steady. That's what saved me. That's why I'm still standing." A soft gospel riff rose from a keyboard near the back, weaving through the room. The chorus hummed along, an old melody stitched into new hope. Zara closed her notebook and looked out at the kids lined in front, inviting them with a nod. They climbed the steps, forming a semicircle behind her. Boys in sneakers, girls with braids, one shy teen holding a basketball against his chest. Together they recited the last line, voices steady. "Roots hold us, wings carry us. Broken isn't the end." The crowd stood, applause mixing with the hum of gospel. Caleb felt something loosen deep inside, a knot untied by the sight of a girl who had walked through a storm and learned to speak over it. He stepped to the podium. "This isn't charity," he told the room. "It's an investment in every child who's been told they don't belong. Roots anchor you. Wings set you free. Westbrook is proof we can have both." Pastor Lyle placed a hand on Caleb's shoulder, nodding. Althea wiped a tear, pride bright on her face. Outside, the city moved as always. Buses groaning, vendors calling, kids racing down sidewalks. But inside the hall, something new had taken root. A promise stitched from community, memory, and fight. Zara caught Caleb's eye, a quiet grin breaking through. She wasn't the child clutching a phone anymore. She stood at the center of a room built for her and kids like her, a place where storms couldn't steal tomorrow. The gospel chords swelled, a final amen to a story that had turned survival into belonging, fear into flight. Evening draped the rec hall in soft amber, the last warmth of day sliding through wide-open doors. Children spilled onto the brick steps with fresh journals tucked under their arms, laughter lifting against the hum of a guitar still strumming somewhere inside. Althea stood near the rail, hands folded, eyes bright with quiet pride. Pastor Lyle leaned beside her, the corners of his mouth turned up, as if he could already see next summer's block party on this very ground. Caleb watched from a few feet away, jacket over his shoulder. Across the courtyard, Zara and Noah wove through a circle of younger kids, their voices tumbling with stories about the evening. Zara paused, notebook clutched against her chest, and turned toward the group pressing closer. She didn't open the pages. Every time someone stands, she said, voice calm but carrying. Another child learns they're worth standing for. A ripple of applause moved through the crowd, low at first, then steady, a heartbeat rising from the people who had walked this journey with her. A few elders dabbed at their eyes, remembering nights when they themselves needed someone to stand. Althea reached for Caleb's arm, grip strong despite the softness in her eyes. "Look at her," she whispered. Camille's light didn't fade. Pastor Lyle nodded. "Roots took hold. Now the wings start." Zara stepped closer to the line of children waiting for their turn at the mic. "Write your own pieces," she urged them. "Speak them loud. Someone out here is waiting to hear you." Noah nudged her forward, grinning. She laughed, the sound clean and sure, then handed her notebook to a shy boy clutching a basketball. The boy cleared his throat, began to read, and the crowd leaned in, forming a wall of support around a voice just beginning. Caleb glanced over the gathering. Neighbors, teachers, barbershop regulars, women from the choir, teens who once drifted at the edge of trouble. They weren't just an audience, they were guardians of the promise stitched through this story, that no child should stand alone. For anyone watching, the message was clear. Hold space for a young one. Share hope. Leave a word that tells them they matter. Stories like Zara's don't survive in silence. They live when people choose to keep the light alive. Zara raised her head, eyes steady, a small smile breaking through. Around her, voices rose again, gentle but firm, echoing her words into the evening air. Evening draped the rec hall in soft amber, the last warmth of day sliding through wide-open doors. Children spilled onto the brick steps with fresh journals tucked under their arms, laughter lifting against the hum of a guitar still strumming somewhere inside. Althea stood near the rail, hands folded, eyes bright with quiet pride. Pastor Lyle leaned beside her, the corners of his mouth turned up, as if he could already see next summer's block party on this very ground. Caleb watched from a few feet away, jacket over his shoulder. Across the courtyard, Zara and Noah wove through a circle of younger kids, their voices tumbling with stories about the evening. Zara paused, notebook clutched against her chest, and turned toward the group pressing closer. She didn't open the pages. "Every time someone stands," she said, voice calm but carrying. "Another child learns they're worth standing for." A ripple of applause moved through the crowd, low at first, then steady, a heartbeat rising from the people who had walked this journey with her. A few elders dabbed at their eyes, remembering nights when they themselves needed someone to stand. Althea reached for Caleb's arm, grip strong despite the softness in her eyes. "Look at her," she whispered. Camille's light didn't fade. Pastor Lyle nodded. "Roots took hold. Now the wings start." Zara stepped closer to the line of children waiting for their turn at the mic. "Write your own pieces," she urged them. "Speak them loud. Someone out here is waiting to hear you." Noah nudged her forward, grinning. She laughed, the sound clean and sure, then handed her notebook to a shy boy clutching a basketball. The boy cleared his throat, began to read, and the crowd leaned in, forming a wall of support around a voice just beginning. Caleb glanced over the gathering. Neighbors, teachers, barbershop regulars, women from the choir, teens who once drifted at the edge of trouble. They weren't just an audience, they were guardians of the promise stitched through this story, that no child should stand alone. For anyone watching, the message was clear. Hold space for a young one. Share hope. Leave a word that tells them they matter. Stories like Zara's don't survive in silence. They live when people choose to keep the light alive. Zara raised her head, eyes steady, a small smile breaking through. Around her, voices rose again, gentle but firm, echoing her words into the evening air.